Welcome back to Magical Experiments.
And I'm Sheena Witter. Hello, everyone. Um, we're going to be diving into something that most magical practitioners I know, especially the ones who wear many hats, really struggle with. And that's about what it means to be a multi-passionate magician, um, and how to stop that from becoming a source of overwhelm or shame or just leaving you completely stuck.
And before we get into that, I see that we already have a couple people who joined us live. So for those of you who aren't familiar with how we do things, if at any time you have questions or comments, feel free to drop those below because we love answering them as we're going. And it just brings us so much joy to do that. You know, the interesting thing about this is that I've definitely struggled with that feeling of shame and overwhelm and inertia in my own life. There have been times where I've felt so scattered because there's so many different things that I feel passionate about. And when your attention is pulled in 5 different directions and your ideas are half formed and your magical projects are scattered across timelines and notebooks, the problem isn't that you're too much.
Yeah, so one of the questions that we love to ask is, which version of you is running the show? And what would happen if you chose very deliberately and very consciously to make your decisions from your present self? So we're going to break down the 4 versions of selves today, and we'll guide you through a little integration ritual that we like to call the constellations of your calling.
All right, I love it. So let's start here because the truth of the matter is you and I are both multi-passionate musicians. It's one of the things that I love about you. And it's one of the
Yeah.
things that I imagine you love about me.
Mhm. Absolutely.
It's not just a mindset, it's how we live. I mean, if you were to look right now at the book that I was reading, I have 15 different books with 15 different bookmarks in them, and I'm somewhere in there in all of those books. And that's just one example of how this multi-passionate magical path shows up in my life. So, here's a handful of threads that I hold in my life, like the identities that I juggle with. I write and I publish books, both nonfiction on magical experiments and on inner alchemy coach, and then fiction, which lets me play with magic in entirely new worlds. I work as a business consultant. I also run a men's coaching program to support emotional resilience, leadership, and transformation in men. And of course, the final hat, as it were, and I'll even put it on my famous hat. There you go to show, because I wear multiple hats. Magical experiments, my playground for testing magical systems in real time. That's a lot of hats.
It is. And I've never done just one thing. So I coach founders and executives. I do psychedelic integration and trauma work. Um, I have been a museum curator, an ESL teacher, a photographer, a certified aromatherapist. I run art galleries. I built businesses. I manage nonprofits. I have always said that I'm not super employable in one track because I tend to take on everything. Um, and I'm always looking for ways that kind of I can weave things that I like into, and I'm usually I go and create my own position. Sometimes that works really well. Sometimes it hasn't in the past. Um, but right now I've kind of learned it's like, well, these are just the building blocks. Um, I tried to keep things separate for so many years. It's like I tried to fit into like whatever little box like right in front of me. Um, anyone here ever struggled with the question of what do you actually do? And like you're supposed to have like the response of just like one thing. And as a business coach, I have taught people how to create their elevator pitches, how to really articulate what they do. Works great for some folks. For others, we have to take a little bit of a different approach. Uh, what we don't want is to get stuck in like the old identities, our projections, our shoulds. So,
Well, we definitely don't want to do that. And I gotta say, I've been there, done that. Also, I've struggled at times to really articulate like what is it that I do, because it's like I wear so many different hats. I have so many different ideas, and I have all this creativity and this passion and these things that drive me, and I want to share all of that with the world. And it feels like, in a very real sense, it's kind of like the world just tries to pigeonhole everything. It's like, well, what's that one thing that you do, as opposed to really celebrating the multiplicity of being that all of us have. So, what we want to do now is walk you through an exercise where we get to explore the versions of you. We're going to talk about four versions of you. And they show up every time you choose where to put your attention, your energy, or creative force. First, there's the imaginary you. And this is the one that's shaped by other people's projections. It's what your audience expects. It's what your parents believe. It's what your followers think they signed up for. It's performance, purely and simply. And a good example of that would be me staying in the magical nonfiction author lane for way longer than I needed to, because I didn't know if people would be able to make sense of my fiction writing or the writing that I was doing around men's coaching or some of the other projects that I got involved with. And that was my imaginary me calling the shots, saying, oh, you gotta fit into one box. And actually it wasn't even just that. It was like I actually did have multiple things that I was doing, but I felt like I had to split myself in two. So I had my business coaching on one side and my magical on the other side. And both of these were imaginary me that were performative, that didn't think that that I could somehow marry these together. And so it was something that really limited me in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And the thing about the imaginary versions of us is they are not real. It is literally other people's versions of us, their ideas, their perceptions about who we are. And somewhere along the way, we kind of take them on. And we can take them on to like a fundamental core level. I used to have, when I was a child, I was told by by teachers and my principal and everyone's like, "Oh, you're going to be a teacher. You're going to be a teacher. You're a teacher, Sheena. You're a teacher." And I'm like, "Okay." But I got through it and I was like ready to go to university and I went, I hate everything about the university process. Like I love teaching, but I don't want to have to teach in this way in this box and, keep everything in separation. So I kind of went just I created my own way of being a teacher. But there's so many versions of ourselves that we take on that have absolutely nothing to do with us or the reality of who we really are.
You want to guess what
So,
I was going to be when I was a kid?
yes.
I was told,
Hmm.
I was told, okay, yeah, go for it.
I hmm. I have no matter what I'm gonna say, it's still gonna be the wrong answer, right? Um, writer.
Well, yes, writer was part of it, but I was also told that I was going to be a priest, that I should be a priest. I kid you not, which is hilarious because that's like the furthest thing from who I am, and yet I am a magician. So, there you go. So I think it's kind of funny because, how often do we deal with these projected notions as to who we are, whether it's ones that others have put onto us or ones that we carry for ourselves that say, you got to be this way. You have to fit into this specific role. And that can be pretty daunting. So, what about the past you? Because that's another version, right, Sheena?
It is. Before we get there, I just want to ask everybody who's joining us if they have any imaginary versions of themselves that has kind of been sabotaging them. And one of the reasons that we're bringing it up in the frame of like multi-passionate is we say we have so many passions, and so many of them are kind of based on these other versions of ourselves. Like, for the imaginary version, for one brief moment in time, I was really interested in frogs and, the life cycle of the frog and how they grew up and all of that. And my aunt got it into her head that I'm the frog person. And for like 20 years plus, she gave me like frog statues and frog tchotchkes and frog things because in her mind, the imaginary version of me that she held, I'm the frog person. So, and then you look at
Well,
it and like, well, do I actually like frogs? I'm like, well, I mean, they're cool, but they're not, it's not a passion that I really have. It was just completely placed on me.
it sounds like
So,
your aunt was riveting by your interest in frogs.
oh yes, 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 yes. I do love your puns.
I kind of resist. Yeah. So yeah, for those of you who've joined, please feel free to drop down in the comments your the imaginary you that was handed down to you by other people, or the one that you carried with you that tells you that you have to be a certain way. Because we'd love to read, we'd love to share that. And if you have any questions as we're continuing to explore the multi-passionate magician, these different versions, and some of the other things we're going to do, again, drop those in as well because we do love to answer them and connect with you while we're here live.
Yes, and if you did do the uh, uh, landscape or the ecosystem that we just published in our last post, can't remember the name of it right now. Um, that this is going to kind of fit onto that, and we're actually going to do like another add-on that we're going to share with you. So it's really about like getting to know the ecosystem of you as a multi-passionate person and a multi-passionate magician. So we were looking at in the previous post, we were looking at that ecosystem of all like who are you? What do you like? What interests you? What are your passions? What are your skills? And tonight we're going to be looking at like what are all those unfinished projects? So
It was the alchemy of many callings, and I'm going to drop the link in here real quick.
excellent.
There we go. I just dropped it in. Speaking of alternate versions, it's my alternate version as a men's coach that just dropped it in there. But there you go. So for those of you who want to see that, just go ahead and check that out. And Neiman said, I was always told that I was going to just be a criminal and end up in prison. I mean, that right there is a great example of a harmful imaginary self, right? Because
Hmm.
what are you being told? You're being told that you're going to end up a certain way. And you know what? I feel you on that because one of the other things I was told a lot of times as a kid was that I was a disappointment. So I carried that imaginary self with me for a long, long time. So I get that. Like even being told whether you're being told that you're a criminal or a disappointment or something like that, that's an example of how those imaginary versions can actually hold us back in traumatic ways.
Um, Taylor, there were a couple of other comments come in. I can't scroll because of where my setup is. Do you take a look?
Yes. Said I dropped in because I thought maybe this was the human design manifestor generating generator, and then said interesting stuff. Well, Sam, it's not necessarily about human design, but I promise you it is very interesting stuff. And we're going to have some fun exploring this even further. So please stick around. Um, yeah, Nima said it's been so fun to work with too. Yep, disappointment and nothing. Right. Well, here's the thing. We get the opportunity to rewrite these. And one of the things we're going to explore today is how we can rewrite that by exploring our passions. So again, stick with us. And oh yeah, Sam said I was told I would never amount to anything because I was lazy. Right. So
Hmm.
again, these are imaginary selves that we might still carry. They might still be whispering in our heads. They might still be lurking in our hearts as shadows. You know what? The beautiful thing is if we get the opportunity to rewrite those and transform them. And that's one of the reasons we love to integrate magic and shadow work, somatic work, and all the other things that we do into how we work with people, but also how we teach people to empower themselves. So tell me a
Okay,
little bit
so
about your past version, Sheena, because you actually have one that you want to talk a little bit about.
there's so many. So the past versions of ourselves, these are really rooted in survival. It's rooted in what used to work. Building systems that keep you safe, but it doesn't necessarily reflect who you are now. And so many of our passions are expired. They map to old versions of ourselves. Um, past me kept everything very compartmentalized. Teaching was in one box, business development in one box, spirituality was in another box. And we do this with our core identities as well. And what we just kind of accept as default. It's like the lens becomes very deeply embedded. So one of the processes, the magical processes that I was involved in was I spent a lot of time looking at these past versions of myself, and like some of them were good. It was the archetype of the teacher or the alchemist or um, different things like that. And I actually used the archetype deck by Carolyn Myss, and I pulled out the archetypes that I most identified with, and then I went through this process of I have to let these go. Um, and some of them were really hard because they're so much a part of my identity. And once I started this process of literally just saying, okay, this part of my life is over, I'm releasing this identity. The really interesting thing is they have all come full circle. They've all come back, but they've come back in a way that is more expanded and more evolved and fitting who I am now. The expressions have changed, but I really had to go through that process of like, okay, I'm done. This one is over. I'm completely letting go of it. Um,
Yeah, I want to share a couple stories here too, because this is something I resonate with. I mean, I used to have it was the same thing. I used to have these stories about who I was supposed to be. So yeah, I was I started out actually originally like writing poetry and then writing fiction, and like that's what I thought I had to be. And then I got into academia, and I thought, oh, I have to be the academic. And so I gave up some of the other writings, and I abandoned part of myself in a way because I thought like I couldn't be these things. And then at a certain point, I started to rebel against that. And I was like, no, I'm a magician and I'm going to write about the stuff I want to write about. And so that became really important to me. And it helped me kind of claim that path moving forward in my life of, starting to honor myself. But, as all things occur, I went through various iterations of this. At one time, I was a business and social media coach. And so I would do a ton of work around that. And I think one of the most important and empowering realizations that I've had over the years, and this really factors into this work, is I get to choose the identities that I want to keep and work with. And I get to also choose to let go of the identities that don't no longer serve me. So one of the things that that I did is I eventually did let go of the social media consultant. Now I still did business coaching and consulting, and I love doing that on the occasions when it comes up. But even that's something I'm letting go because it's something that I don't really openly advertise that much anymore. My focus is on my path as a magical experimenter and my path as a men's coach because those are the identities that are calling me forward into this life. And I'm starting to. I've been a self-publisher for a while, but I'm starting to explore the path of coming back into publishing for other people as well. So there is that path that sometimes opens up. Sometimes we let go of an identity and we come back to it and it comes full circle. In fact, you and I were joking about that recently about how like we're coming back full circle. And that's okay too. We can come back full circle. And sometimes we have to learn certain lessons or have certain experiences. And we don't know at the time that those experiences and lessons are going to actually help us transform us in the way that we want. And we think, oh, I failed. I mean, I can easily tell you how many classes I signed up for and I learned something, but I wasn't able to successfully implement it. At the time, it took me years. It took me a long time. I had to figure it out. And that was one of the most empowering lessons that I eventually discovered is that it was possible to do that, but I had to do it my own way, not the way that was taught necessarily by the teacher I was learning from.
yeah. And, we tend to carry what worked for us in the past or like our past passions and things like that. We kind of stick them all in a backpack and stick the backpack on our back and we like trudge forward and we're still carrying all of these passions. And then we feel guilty because we're not doing them or we're not putting enough time on them or we want to be doing something else. So there's tends to be a lot of buildup of like judgment, or, if only I'd committed to this passion or, things like that. So one of the questions that we have is, are there any passions that are from past versions of yourself that you feel like you're done with and that you're ready to release and reclaim the energy from.
Feel free to drop those below in the comments there. We've already shared a couple of examples of ones that we've let go of. And I got to tell you, it feels good to let go of some of those. It feels like, I've taken a boulder off of my back, and I get to decide who I want to be consciously instead of carrying these projections from the past.
Yeah. And there's a lot of magical, especially if you're multi-passionate, there's like a lot of magical practices and things that you pick up, traditions that you do and things like that, that worked for a past version of yourself. And sometimes, you have to let those go as well in order to step into something new or to create something new.
Yeah, that's true. While we're waiting for people to answer that, if you want to, again, feel free to drop a comment on like a past version that you've let go of. Let's talk about the next version as well, the idealized you. So this is the version that's built out of comparison and perfectionism. It's the fantasy version of yourself, the one who never forgets a morning ritual, who built six-figure empires without blinking, with no sweat or anything else. It's boom, just happens like that. And for me, I mean, this ideal version was publishing books as fast as possible, launching cleaner and launching cleanly and quickly, and scaling better. I constantly felt like I was behind, even when I was producing more than enough. And I'd be comparing myself to other people out there that were, that were doing what I was doing and thinking like, I have to be like those people. And that was really the worst part of it, because that honestly felt sickening in a way, because I never felt like I was good enough. And the reality is that as long as I was comparing myself to them, I wasn't good enough.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many great examples, even non-magically. Like, you look at anybody who has a piece of exercise equipment in their house that, like, you were absolutely sure I was going to step into this idealized version of myself. I was going to get in really good shape. I bought all of the equipment. And, there has been a challenge in like really going into it. And I think that, in our social media and our perfect Instagram lives and only sharing the highlight reels, like, it's really this idea that we're all kind of like this idealized versions of ourselves, when really, like, it's shadowy, it's messy, we make mistakes, we fail, we live. And I know I've definitely been like, okay, the idealized version of myself is I'm going to, I mean, journaling is a perfect example. I have like hundreds of notebooks where I've like, okay, I'm going to start the journal and this is going to be the one, and I'm going to be a journaler, and this is going to be my system, and I spend all the money on it. I do that with art as well. It's like, oh, I have to get all of the things for this one passion that I'm currently, exploring, instead of just exploring it. You go to right to the idealized version of yourself, and it costs a whole lot of money. So it's sometimes just like stopping and going,
Where you get
yeah,
caught up in comparing yourself to other people, trying to be like them instead of being your authentic self. We had a couple more comments here. Nima said, "Oh yes, indeed. Let go of being the excellent student going nowhere. Good. Let go of that. That's important." And Sam said, "I'm letting go of the me that wanted to please everyone and be normal and not rock the boat." I feel that. Yeah.
yeah.
So we have another question now for you. And again, invite you to drop a comment in. And that question is, kind of look at your passions and see which of them stem from that idealized version of yourselves that you might have in your head. Is that idealized version stopping you from getting started with that passion? And no judgment here, because I've definitely been that guy where I've
I'm
had
regularly that person.
right. And actually, one of the beautiful things really is that actually, because like you and I are collaborating and working together, like I found that I'm that guy less, because I have somebody to bounce stuff off of. And that's one of the things that we really believe in here with what we're doing. This isn't just like a Substack article or a publication. This is a community that we're building. It's supporting each other, supporting ourselves, because when we're in community, we're not alone. The other day, I was actually teaching a class on energy alchemy, and one of the things that I did every time I was working with people is I'd be facilitating one person, I'd ask them to share something they were working on, and then I would say to everyone else, like, "Who can identify with that?" And people would start raising their hands, and I would say to that person I was working with, "Look around. You're not alone." And I say that because right now it's really important to recognize you're not alone. You're not alone, and you don't have to be alone. And that is the beauty of community and what we have. Sam says she's currently fighting the people pleaser part of me to step outside of my comfort zone. Oh, yeah, I identify with that, Sam. I was fighting that people pleaser myself earlier today, believe it or not. So you see, you're not alone. It happens. And somehow or another, I stepped out of my comfort zone and into the discomfort because the discomfort is where the edge is. It's where the fuel for growth is.
Yeah. And I think with the idealized version of ourselves is like we get this idea that we do have to be perfect, that we have to be successful, that we have to, get it on the first try. And that really just kind of leads to that kind of paralysis, our inability to move forward because we don't immediately, in our instant gratification um, world, like get to that idealized version right away.
It's the analysis paralysis. So there's one final version here that we're working with. Not that there aren't other versions, but we're talking about 4 versions, and so we've covered 3 of them so far. And the last one, Sheena, is
The present version. So this is where your magic actually lives. It's where you actually are anchored and you create some. It's where you're rooted, you're resourced, and it's really what's alive for you right now and what is actually available right now. So when you're acting from this place, like things feel real, they're aligned, you have support, you have community, um, and you're not thinking about the past. You're not stuck in the land of like, oh, if only I'd done that. You're not in the future idealized version of myself where you're shitting yourself because you're supposed to be a certain way. It's like it's where you are right now and what passions are present and alive for you, like in this moment, because those are the ones that you have access to. That's what is the juiciest. That is where you can really start using your passions in the multitude that they have and combining them into creating new magic.
we have another comment. Nima said, "Yeah, for me, it would be that in the past, I could not pay attention at all and breathe my way through anything I wanted to learn, but it didn't necessarily stick. It got me the grades, and I have that ick of being the eternal student getting the grades but not using anything." Yeah, I mean that's a great example of that. And so this is one of the reasons why it's good to explore these different versions and to understand how they show up, and at the same time not be attached to them because they are just versions. That present you is that version that is fully grounded and resourced and real. It's the version that says, I'm going to shine and be the person that I want to be with my passion, with my ideas. And it's not caught up in performance. It's not saying, like, oh, I've got to be a certain way, I've got to do a certain thing. Instead, it says, I'm going to choose from a place of sovereignty, from a place of awareness. So we've named our inner voices, Sheena. And at this
Mhm.
point, I think that we were going to do a ritual, or we're going to have people do a ritual. Can you tell us a little bit about what we're going to be doing today?
Yeah, so this might take a little bit more self-examination. So we figured we would share it with you. If you have any questions around it, um, we're happy to answer them. And we'll also include like the full directions underneath this post, which will be coming out tomorrow, so you can actually do it. We're really looking at the constellation of your callings. So you'll need a few things. You'll need a piece of paper, eyeliner markers, and 3 pieces of string or ribbon, a bowl of salt water, a mirror, and a candle or flame.
And again, for those
Uh-huh.
of you watching live, we are going to be posting that this is going to be coming out tomorrow. So you're going to have the full set of instructions. So, like, don't stress if you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get it all together. It's still going to be there tomorrow.
It'll absolutely be there tomorrow. And it does take a little bit of reflection. Um, so we're just sharing with you the ritual itself, and we will also be available in both in the Magical Experiments chat and on the post itself if you have any questions, if you do decide to do it.
And
So
I want to note that just real quick, I just want to note that we are very responsive to comments and also in the chat. So like if you have stuff that you want to share there, like please know that one or both of us will respond. I mean, we had actually a number of comments on that alchemy of many callings recently, and we were both responding there. So, we definitely want you to know. Sam, thank you for being on here. Yeah. And yeah, the replay will be out tomorrow. Appreciate you being here. So let's go into the first step.
yes,
Step one of this process is dump it out. What you're going to do is you're going to write down every magical path, business idea, creative project, course, or ritual that you ever wanted to follow through on. Half finished, imagined, secret ones too. There's no judgment. There's no editing. This is just about getting it all onto the page. And I want you
and
to
this
take a
is
deep
why.
breath with me. Oh, hold on. I want you to take a deep breath with me on that one. All right. What were you going to say, Sheena?
And this is why it might take a while because as multi-passionate magicians, you probably have you might need more than one piece of paper. Um, Sometimes it takes big whiteboards and multiple pages, and it's all good. But we really do encourage you to just dump all of it out. Once you do that, the next part is really looking at clusters. So this is kind of just standing back and scanning what's on your paper and noticing what belongs together. Now, this is an intuitive process. This might not be a logical process. So, what themes, patterns, or shared energy do you notice? And it's a really interesting um, process to go through because you might find that there's different versions of the same thing. There's core passions that you have that have kind of showed up in all of these different ways over all of these different times. Um, so just really noticing where those connections are. So you can draw lines, make circles. You're really, again, looking at building an ecosystem of all of these passions and desires and half finished projects and things that you've devoted your attention and magic to.
Mm-hmm. And next, we're going to go to step 3. You're going to choose 3 to explore. You're going to pick 3 clusters that feel alive to you right now. Not the ones that feel urgent or impressive. It's going to be the ones with heat, the ones that call to you. And you're going to take one string for each cluster. And as you tie a knot in the string for each item in that group, you're going to say its name aloud. What you're doing is naming them into the fabric of your life. You're making them part of your identity. You're claiming them on your terms, consciously, as empowered sovereign magicians.
Yeah. And it's really powerful to name it out loud. And then the last step is really witnessing yourself. So this is where we'll invite you to light a candle, hold a look in the mirror and really look at yourself in your eyes and just ask yourself, which version of you has been trying to keep all of these? And it might be the past version. It might be a combination of all of the different versions of yourself. And that's perfect. It might be just the present version of yourself. Whatever shows up is absolutely perfect. And then we just ask, what does the present you really want to carry forward? And, you might feel drawn to one of the threads first, one of the projects or one of the clusters. Um, you might feel well, this was really important and this was a part of my identity, but I'm actually ready to let this whole thread and everything attached to it just go. Um, or you might go, oh, this is a large part of this cluster and this thread was formed because of other people's ideas of who I should be. And I don't actually want it and just burn it. Once you've kind of gone through that process, we kind of just symbolically go back to presence and, just dip your finger in the salt water and just press it to your forehead and just say that, you choose presence now, and then let the rest go. And because we're multi-passionate, like that letting go part can be really hard, but we're not letting go of it forever. It's just like the focusing of your multi-passion into something that you can be in this present moment with and start creating from.
Yeah, the goal here isn't clarity in the traditional sense of the word. This is about movement and coherence. It's permission to stop chasing your tail and start actively choosing from a place of conscious awareness and sovereignty and presence. And guess what? You get to do that every moment of your day. You get to do that every moment of your life. This is just introducing it in a very purposeful way that you can work with, both right now with this exercise and in the future down the line. Where, if you watch this video 2 years from the line, down the line, you can still do this.
Yeah. So we would just love to check in and see if anybody has any questions or comments. Anybody excited and willing to commit to do the ritual?
While we're waiting for that, I'm going to also briefly note that we have this Saturday, we have the Magical Experiments Alchemy Lab. Oh, Nima said yes, it sounds exciting and helpful. Awesome. Great. That's great, Nima. And we just had someone join us. Hi, Jack. Well, welcome. We've been kind of going through this here for a little bit. But we have the Magical Experiments Alchemy Lab coming up this Saturday. This is free and exclusively for paid subscribers of Magical Experiments Substack. So Nima, you'd be one of those people, and you can sign up and join us live. And if you join us live, you'll get the recording. If you don't, you won't. So that's the other thing to keep in mind. But we're going to actually be talking about magical experiments and projects that all of us are working on. It's going to be basically a magical experiments mastermind group. Anything else you want to add to that?
I'm really excited because one of the other hats that I have worn in the past is facilitating masterminds and master hearts. And I love the ability to get together as a community, especially because there is so much knowledge and wisdom and experience in the room. And again, because we're multi-passionate, we are bringing such expertise from so many different fields into one place, and we're directing it to one person at a time and really allowing what is alive for them to come through. And, if you have any questions about, an experiment that you're creating, or, you're just having things come up as a magician, or you're doing something and there's something new and you just need a sounding board, whatever it is, we are here for you and we're looking forward to diving in.
Yes, we are. And for the people who just joined us, Agatha just mentioned the Magical Experiments Alchemy Lab. You are also a paid member, so you also get access to that. It's a free experience for people who are paid subscribers. We're going to be doing a mastermind. It's going to be this Saturday. So I will make sure I send both of you a link for that. And of course, anyone else who wants to join us definitely can. They just need to become paid subscribers. But the other thing that we want to basically emphasize about it too is that this is an opportunity where your best experiments get tested and broken open and rebuilt. There's no polish required. It's just about presence. It's about showing up, and it is a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of fun together. I'm super excited about it. Now, were you going to say something?
I was just also hoping you could tell us a little bit about the other Substack articles that we're releasing for both free and paid subscribers on the ecosystems. So I'm excited about those.
So we do have some exciting stuff coming up. which I'll go into really quick. We're going to actually have an article coming out next week where we explore the how to reclaim your energy, and identifying again areas where people, things, events might be taking your energy. It's kind of a prelude to the class that we're going to be offering at the end of the month, which is all about exploring like what's harvesting your energy. And in that class, we're going to be sharing a protocol for how to divine and douse like what might be taking your energy away, and then show you how to protect yourself from that and reclaim it on your terms. And then we have a couple of articles coming out, one on the multidisciplinarian magician, someone who combines multiple disciplines, and the magician who creates systems. Because here's the thing, when you are a multi-passionate magician, you have some rare insights that not just anyone has. You have the ability to take multiple disciplines and combine them into a magical system that makes sense to you and allows you to transform the way you connect with the world. So all of those are coming up. And we're also going to be doing another live broadcast next week. We're going to be diving deeper into attention magic and what's been harvesting your energy and how to take it back. We're going to be exploring some of that, as I said, as well in the class that's coming up. So we're super excited to be sharing that all with you. And this is going to be coming out tomorrow. For those of you who are live, this is going to be coming out tomorrow with the full protocol and exercise that we did in here. So, even if you came here late to the party, you're still going to get a chance to go through and do the exercise that we did today, and incorporate that into your magical work.
Yeah. And we have some extra time. So I would love it if anybody has any questions or any explorations on being a multi-passionate magician. Yeah. What are you curious about? What have been some of your challenges or experiences? I remember there's definitely times where like it has been kind of overwhelming, and to the point where other people have just assumed that like when I was a curator I was the oral history curator at a museum, and my boss came to me one day and he handed me a stack of business cards and he went, these are yours. And I look at it and I'm like, DFE after my name. I'm like, I don't know what those letters stand for. And he goes, well, you do fucking everything. And I was like, that's that's the encapsulation of someone who's multi-passionate. Is like they do everything. And sometimes that is amazing, and sometimes, we converge into something that really allows us to shine and to use all of our passions into a way that is like our true self-expression. And that is where the system, creating our own systems for magic and really just living, come in. Um,
Agatha just shared that one of her biggest issues is organizational skills and being overwhelmed with too many options and choices at my disposal. Okay. So that definitely, Agatha, RE Magic. Definitely, Agatha. This live video is going to come out tomorrow, and the what we described in terms of what you can do is going to be part of that. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And that's definitely part of what we like to explore, because the fact of the matter is, yes, there might be too many options, seemingly, or choices at your disposal. And I get it, because sometimes I feel overwhelmed with everything as well. Yet the beauty of being a multi-passionate magician is that you are able to take all of those skills that you've learned and combine them in unique and powerful and innovative ways. And it is possible to do that. It doesn't have to be an overwhelming experience. It's just one of those cases where what's needed is sometimes getting clear, like, well, this is what I don't need to carry with me anymore, and this is what I am going to carry with me. We've got another comment here. Nima said, for me, I tend to get overloaded and overwhelmed because I want to do all the things, and in my attempts to go against always being told to pick just one, I want them all right now, so prioritizing troubles me. Sheena, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know you've got some interesting perspectives around that.
Story of my life. um, yeah, I can't remember who said it. It's kind of stuck in my head, but you can have everything you want, you just can't have it all at once. And I have figured out shortcuts that really worked for myself. And a large part of it is like, as we live in the present versions of ourselves and we are kind of releasing the past versions of ourselves and the idealized version and other people's version of ourselves, um, our intuition tends to get a lot stronger. We just start naturally creating filters of what is what would be in alignment for what we want to be creating. And you could actually, you could create an attention entity specifically to help you with this, um, which I actually might try. Another thing that I do is if I have a whole bunch of different options, I will create a dowsing protocol. I will just kind of list everything and go, okay, I this is where I'm at now. Um, I want to be creating something or I want to be having a specific experience. Um, Out of all of these options, what's most in alignment for me? And you can just kind of go through and the hardest part with that is like, okay, you got an answer, you have to honor it. Um, but those are some of the things that I would kind of look at doing. Um, and also giving yourself permission to put things down. Um, you might only need that one page. You might need that one idea. You might need just like a little taster of something and to be incorporating that in. Um, we do live in a culture where, it's like be consistent, finish through, have your follow through. And that can lead to a lot of like guilt and shame if you don't. So, like, just giving yourself permission to take what works for you and not have to finish all of it.
Yeah, you don't have to finish all of it. In fact, sometimes the most powerful experience that you can give yourself is choosing not to finish something and letting it go. There have been projects that I have let go to the wayside because it wasn't the right time. In fact, here's an interesting little tidbit for you. I had a couple years ago started writing a book on social media magic. And I wrote like the first chapter or two, and then I was just like, I don't feel it. I'm like, I'm gonna let this go. And so I didn't do anything with it. I let it go. And I'm really glad I did because it wasn't the right time. And since then, I've had some interesting stuff come up. It's gonna change the focus of the book, but I'm glad I have those initial notes there because I have something to work with. And Sheena and I are going to actually put that book out, and we're going to be doing some it's going to be some point in the next couple of years. I don't know exactly when, but we're going to have some really fascinating, interesting um, stuff that we're because we've both been working on and experimenting with things. And what it really turned out to be was it wasn't the right time for it. And if I had held on to the idea that I had to put that out right then and there, I would have actually been keeping myself from the best possible version of that work. And that's one of the beauties of being a multi-passionate magician. We can put some of our passions down and then come back toward them. Neva said, yes, I loathe that whole line of thinking, be consistent, finish one before starting another. Ugh, painful. Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, right now I'm working on two book projects. I'm working on Tower Time with Sheena, and we're revising it. And I'm working on a book about how to deal with breakups and divorces for men because men need that help. And so it's one of those cases where, again, it's like those are two different projects that speak to me. Should I just say, oh, no, I got to wait till the one? Nope. I'm working on both of them a little bit each day. And I'm glad that I am because it's giving that part of me a chance to share that with them and the voice. And again, sometimes it's good to put some stuff down. Sometimes it's good to recognize like this is what speaks to me. Trust yourself, trust your intuition. And of course, do the exercise that we mentioned here. And again, for people who've joined later in the game, we're going to be posting this tomorrow with the full exercise. So you're going to get a chance to go through and do the exercise. And since there is a couple of components, as it were, to put together, it might even be better to look at it tomorrow, where you can pause and review the video and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I need to do that one thing there or whatever else. But the point
Yeah.
is that you have that option available to you. That's going to be coming out tomorrow here.
Yeah. I think that one of the aspects of being a multi-passionate magician that we don't talk about so much is the energy and attention and intention that we put into all of our different multi-passionate projects and learnings and systems and things like that. And while on the one hand, that's excellent, we can actually, by putting stuff down or by closing loops, we can actually reclaim a lot of that energy that's just kind of hanging out there. Um, it's like if you have 15 books and you're reading them all at once, like every time you walk past that stack, you like, oh, I'm reading all of these books, which is fine if you're reading through it and going through them. But if you've started 15 books and you're like not reading any of them and you're doing other things, there's still all of that time and energy and attention that is kind of still open. It's like, oh, attention's over here. So one of the things that I like to do on a regular basis is I do what I call a container collapse. And this is a very intentional, like I look at my all of the various passion projects that I have open and I go, are there any that I have to let go of either just for now, in which case I put them down. And then what I do for those is I set the intention to recall the energy so that it can be recirculated back into that project in a new and evolutionary way. And for other projects that, they might be a past me project or that very idealized version of myself, what I'll do is I'll actually take that container and collapse it and recall all of that energy. So then that can be funneled into a new passion project or support one of my other ones that I have going on. So it's really like about taking the intentionality of what you're passionate about and finding the avenues where you want to be intentionally putting your energy.
Hey, we got another question here, Sheena. Agatha asked, can you tell us more about the attention entity? She was asking you specifically. So,
Yes, Taylor and I led a workshop last month, which is all on creating attention entities. Um, and these are living entities that are created from your attention and intention, and they're really designed to be in relationship with you to do different things that help you focus your attention. Um, so we'll
and,
in this,
and I think in this case, she's kind of curious, like, how are you going to create the attention entity that you were talking about? Or like, what are you going to do with the attention entity in this case around the multi-passionate stuff? Because you mentioned brief that earlier. Because Agatha actually
yeah.
took that
Oh, right. Okay.
class. Okay.
So how I would, this is where I really wish I could see names and things on the screen.
I
um,
understand, and this is also why I keep track of all the details anyway. That's one of the reasons we work so well together.
I appreciate you. Um, well, it was, uh, we were talking about the overwhelm and like how many different options and opportunities there are. And I'm in that space right now. There's a couple of very specific things that I want to learn around AI, and there's 30 million people who are offering like all of the different things, and you kind of get into it and you're like, I don't know. Like, I know it's something that I'm passionate about, I want to explore, but it's like, where do you even start? So I think what I would do, and I am going to do, is create an entity that really is that filter of all of the possibilities, you know, coming in and narrowing them down dependent on the criteria of what I want to be learning and experiencing. Um, and
Basically,
then I
the
just won't see anything else. Like it'll just be that filter. But if you have any ideas, Taylor, I would, yeah, please.
so basically the entity is going to filter out all the opportunities that don't fit that criteria and bring to your attention and awareness the specific opportunities that do, that are going to align with where you want to take this learning. Is that accurate?
Yes. Is there any other nuance or anything that we can build in, you think?
Well, one, I want to, there's two things there. One, the reason I asked that question was in and of itself to kind of narrow that down. And this is a
Mhm.
good example of being able to take something that someone's passionate about and hone in on like how they're going to use, in this case, the attention entity in order to accomplish that specific goal and help them achieve what they're going to achieve. I think the nuance that I would add to it is how is seeing if you could integrate the attention entity into the AI that you end up developing or working with as a result of that class, so that it helps you to continually refine and develop your skill set. And of course, that is something that we've already been exploring a little bit anyway with AI, is how AI can be treated as entities and worked with as entities, and have their own, and kind of how they tap into the overall thought form, not just as knowledge, but that there's some very interesting aspects of consciousness that come into play with AI from what I've observed. And the conversation that I actually had with a guy named Dave Zilla, that's going to be that's a podcast episode coming up later this month that y'all will get to watch and see, which is really fascinating. So that's just an example right there. Um, some things that and just kind of like a refinement that I would think of, like how could you integrate the entity so that it not only helps you find like what you want to learn, but then it actually works with what you want to learn, and it continues to bring further awareness and knowledge and skill sets that help you take it even further.
That's brilliant. And this is a really quick example of the types of conversations we can be having if we want to be diving into developing in our alchemy lab.
Which is happening this Saturday. So again, for those of you who are paid subscribers, you do get access to the Alchemy Lab that's happening this Saturday. And I will be sending a link to a couple of you just to make sure that you have it. But again, that's free. It doesn't cost you anything because it's one of our ways of saying thank you for being paid subscribers. We love you. And we love all of our subscribers. Let me be very clear as well, because it is a community, and that's one of the reasons we did this. It's to share some of that community knowledge and information, and connect with you. So we really appreciate all the comments that people have made today, because it's just so wonderful to connect with all of you. Oh, and Nima just signed up. Yes, all right, great. We're gonna see you in the Alchemy Lab this Saturday. I was super super excited about that.
Beautiful. And thank you all for joining us. It is a pleasure. And yeah, it allows Taylor and I to explore all of our multi passionate, magical threads. And it's a
And
joy to be
community,
able to do that in community.
because we're both passionate about that as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you all for showing up here tonight. And again, this episode is going to be coming out tomorrow, so you'll get the replay with the exercise included in the text. So that way you can go through and do it at your own pace. And if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, you can leave comments on the post. You can also drop them in the chat. As I mentioned earlier, we are very responsive, and quick to connect with anyone who leaves comments or leaves anything in a chat thread. We want to definitely make sure that um, that we're there for you, and that we're continuing to build this wonderful magical experiments community on here.
Excellent. Thank you all.
And have a magical evening and week.